Raib selamat sekarang kita oleh Islam belantar salawat.
سورة المبارك الفاتحة. There is a request also to recite Surah Fatiha with the Risale Sawab of Mukhtar Hussain Shah, son of Firoz Hussain Shah, who has just passed away. So please recite Surah Fatiha for this marhum. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، شفيع المذنبين وخاتم النبيين، نبينا وشفينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فإليك يا رب نسبت وجهي وإليك يا رب مددت يدي، فبعزتك استجب لدعائي وبلغني منايا، ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي، واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي. يا سريع الرضا اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء، فإنك فعال لما تشاء. يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غنى، ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء وسلاؤه البقاء. يا سابغ النعم، يا دافع النقام، يا نور المستوحشين في الظلام، يا عالما لا يعلم، صل على محمد وآل محمد وافعل بما أنت أحلو. وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد، وهو أصدق الصادقين وقوله الحق. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون. آمنا بالله وصدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد. Elders of the community, my brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمسابنا بأبي عبد الله الحسين عليه الصلاة والسلام. If you look at the question of spirituality, and amongst many scholars of spirituality, most have stated that our ultimate goal is to gain proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course this is very important for us, and we understand this partly because of the fact that every act of worship that we carry out, every act of worship is preceded by a niyyah, by an intention. And that intention always is qurbatan lillahi ta'ala. And that qurbatan lillahi ta'ala means I am carrying out this act of worship in order so that I may gain proximity to you, O Allah. So the question of course comes is, how do I get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And the second question after that is, what is the measure by which I can know that I am getting close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Right? How do I get that confidence that whatever I am doing is actually bringing me that qurb of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? One of the ways that you need to understand this is you have to look at the fact that as you get close to someone, as you get close to an entity, you will see that you start to reflect and manifest the qualities of that entity within yourself. Yes? The closer you get to an entity with somebody, the more you will start to reflect the attributes of that entity within yourself. Let me give you an example. Alhamdulillah, I was blessed once, to go to the ziyarah of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn alayhi salatu wasalam. And that ziyarah that I went to was in the middle of the summer in Iraq. Now in Karbala in the summer, it's extremely hot. And as I was walking to the haram, I saw that there were a few people who were gathered around something. So because I was curious, I said to myself, let me check it out. Let's see what's going on here. So I went and close to see what was happening. And what had happened was that because it was so hot, somebody had brought a very big block of ice. And they had put that big block of ice in the middle of the street. And all these people were trying to get close to that block of ice so that they could feel the coolness of the ice because it was so hot. And you saw that the people who were the closest to the ice block were finding that they're getting much cooler than those who were further away from the ice block. The closer you were to that ice block, the property of that ice block, which was the coolness, was actually being transferred to those people who were the most close to it. Then I had an opportunity, alhamdulillah, to go again for ziyarah, and this time it was in the winter. And in December, in the winter, it's very, very cold in Iraq, in Karbala. Once again, as I was walking towards the haram, I saw that there were some people, this was in the middle of the night, I saw that there were some people who were gathered around something. And curious that I was, I said, let me check it out. What's happening? Why are people gathered around this place? And I saw that because it was a very cold evening, a very cold night, somebody had lit a fire. And all these people were gathered around the fireplace. And when you saw that the person who was the closest to the fire, the warmth of that fire was making that person much warmer. The warmth, which was the property and the attribute of that fire, was being transferred to that person who was the most close to it. The further you were away from that fire, the less warmth you would feel. Maybe some reflections you would still get, but the closer you are, the more warmth you felt. And it is important to understand that nobody could get to the essence of that fire, right? Because if you get to the essence of the fire, what would happen? You would burn, right? Nobody could get to the essence of the fire, but to get close to the fire, close enough so that the qualities and the attributes of that fire would transform into you and make you warm was showing me that the closer you get to the reality, the closer you will start to manifest the attributes and the characteristics of that reality within yourself. And these examples are very important because they show us that the best measure of gaining closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to be able to manifest the names and the attributes and the characteristics of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala within yourself. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is merciful, then in order to gauge how close you are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to assess how merciful are you towards His creation. That will tell you how close you are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Allah is generous, then how generous are you? How much do you manifest that quality of generosity within you? That will tell you how close you are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Allah is kind, then how kind are you? So that will tell you whether you are manifesting that quality and that name of Allah within yourself. The more you manifest His names and His qualities within yourself, the more you get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the definition of akhlaq. If you want to know what akhlaq is simply that concept where you need to show how close you are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How much are you manifesting the names and the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala within yourself? The more you manifest His names and attributes within yourself, the more you are developing your moral and ethical framework. The more you are developing morality, the more you are changing your character. When the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was asked, what is the purpose of you coming into this world? Prophet was asked, what's the purpose? Like, what's the deal? Like, what is the actual purpose that you are here in this world? And look at the reply of the Prophet. The reply of the Prophet is, إِنَّمَا بُئِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمُ الْأَخْلَاقِ. إِنَّمَا بُئِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمُ الْأَخْلَاقِ. The Holy Prophet says that the only purpose of me coming to you in this world is so that I may be able to perfect your moral and ethical character. Not to create it. He does not say that I'm here to create morality and ethics within yourself. No, he says I've come here to perfect your moral and ethical character, which means that in all of us we have a capacity within ourselves to become moral and ethical human beings. The purpose of the Prophet is so that he may be able to perfect it for us. إِنَّمَا بُئِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. It's the only purpose of me coming to you, so that I may be able to build your character, so that I may be able to perfect your character. Therefore, it follows that everything that we do, every act that we carry out, it has an effect on our moral and ethical essence, positive or negative. Whatever act you carry out, that has an effect on your moral and ethical essence. And you have to understand that, because the relationship now between fiqh and akhlaq becomes very clear. Fiqh is what? Jurisprudence, right? Jurisprudential laws, right? The relationship between fiqh and akhlaq is clear now. To be just content, right, in following the rules of fiqh, the rules of jurisprudence, that is not enough. For us just to make sure that we follow the rules of jurisprudence, that is not enough. Fiqh is a system that outlines the absolute minimum that you should have. It is the lowest level. It is the absolute minimum of what you should have. But in order for you to ascend to higher levels and elevate yourself to the closer proximity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to move beyond fiqh. You have to move to the level of morality and ethics. Right? Because fiqh in itself does not guarantee ascension and elevation towards higher levels. Right? The person who wants to get close to Allah has to go beyond this, has to elevate himself beyond this. He has to go to a level of moral and ethical values. Manifest Allah within yourself. That's the challenge. Let me give you an example, right? It's a good example. I don't know if the ladies are listening or not. Because the ladies like this example. And if you look at the example, for example, from a perspective of fiqh, if you look at the relationship of a wife and a husband, from the perspective of fiqh, she is not obliged to cook for you. Huh? She is not obliged to even make you that cup of tea or cup of coffee. She's not obliged to cook nihari for you and fresh chapatis every day. This is not her role, right? I'm talking from a perspective of fiqh, right? From a perspective of fiqh, she can make a cup of tea for her husband and say, that's $5. I'm charging you for it. And he has to pay. It is wajib for him to pay. Of course, if he drinks the tea, he could go to Starbucks and get a caramel macchiato, which may be better for him, but he can charge for it, she can charge for it. To the extent that fiqh says that if your wife is nursing her own child, if she is breastfeeding her own child, she has the authority to charge the husband for breastfeeding her child. Fiqh. These jurisprudential laws. Now, before the women get very happy about this, the other side of fiqh is that as far as between the relationship of the husband and the wife, the woman, the wife, cannot even leave her house without asking for permission from her husband. So if she wants to go to Walmart, do you have Walmart here?
Yeah.
So when she wants to go to Walmart, she has to call her husband, I want to go to Walmart, I need your permission. She wants to go anywhere outside the house, she has to have the permission of her husband. This is from the level of fiqh, right? Now you can imagine if you were to lead your married life simply based just on fiqh only, it would be chaos. Do you not agree? It would be chaos. Every time she wants to go out, she's going to have to phone you and ask you for permission, right? And every time she makes you a cup of tea, she charges you $5, right? It's going to be chaos. What does the Quran say when it comes about, when it talks about the relationship between a husband and wife? The Quran, when it talks about the relationship between a husband and wife, it does not promote a system of fiqh. It promotes a system of ethics and morality. It promotes a system of values. Because the Quran says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُمْ مِنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. The Quran says, إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. The Quran says that amongst the signs of Allah is that He has created you, husband and wife. Why has He created you, husband and wife? So that you may find tranquility in each other. So you may find peace in each other. How are we going to find peace in each other? He says that you will find peace in each other because He has put love and mercy in your hearts. See, Quran is saying that if you want a successful marriage, you have to follow the rules of ethics and morality, mercy and love, mawadda and rahmah, and then you will get a happy marriage. Not just fiqh. You have to rise above the level of fiqh and get to a higher level. Fiqh has its role. There are times when you may have to use those low laws of fiqh in a marriage. But generally the rule is that the married life needs to be based on mawadda and rahmah, values, moral and ethical values. So then this, therefore then, once you're clear the relationship between fiqh and the relationship between fiqh and ethics and morality, the next question that comes is now what is the relationship between worship and morality? What about the relationship between worship and morality? In the Holy Quran, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I have created jinn and human beings so that they may worship me. إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. So that they may worship me. Many times we have interpreted this verse literally. We have interpreted this verse in a way where we ritualistically carry out acts of worship, thinking that we have done our duty towards Him. Alhamdulillah. We carry out our acts of worship in a ritual way, without any understanding, and we think we have done our duties towards Him. Sometimes we ingrain the act of worship that we are carrying out in such a way that, if you miss that act of worship, you feel uneasy. It doesn't feel right. Yes? Because we have created a ritualistic habit of performing that act of worship. If you have an act of worship that you are doing ritualistically, that you've done, for example, you are reciting Zarat Ashura every night, right? Then if you miss one day reciting Zarat Ashura, you will feel uneasy. I missed it. That's because you've created a ritualistic habit of it. It's very good, by the way, to recite Zarat Ashura every night. So don't get me what I'm saying is wrong. It's a good thing to do, trust me. You want to get rid of your problems, recite Zarat Ashura. But what we have missed to understand is it gives us this false notion. It makes us think that we are very pious. We can do Zarat Ashura every night. We recite Salatul Layl every night. Ritualistically when you do it, it makes you feel that you are very pious. We need to go above that ritualistic approach of religion and grasp onto what is the essence of that deen and that religion. So when we connect this verse of worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and with other verses of worship, we find that actually the act of worship is not the key. Listen to me very carefully. I don't want you to misinterpret and be confused. We find, this is from Quranic perspective, we find that the act of worship is not the key. What is important is that every act of worship must bring about a transformational change within us and develop and change our character, morality, and ethics in a positive way. That's the purpose of the act of worship. The act of worship is not the key. The act of worship is a means towards perfecting our character. إِنَّمَا بُئِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمُ الْأَخْلَاقِ, the Holy Prophet said. Every act of worship should build your character in a positive manner. If that act of worship does not create a positive transformational change in your character, then that act of worship is just a ritual. You're just doing it as a ritual. It is not doing anything to your character. It's just doing something as a ritual. Now let me give you some examples, right? To make sure that you understand this point. What is the most important act of worship that we do? Come on. Salat. Salat is the most important act of worship that we carry out. Am I right? Yes. What does Allah say about salat? In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أُتْلُ مَا أُوهِيَ إِلَيْكَ مِنَ الْكِتَابِ وَأَقِيمِ الصَّلَاةِ إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ تَنْحَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنكَرِ وَلَذِكْرِ اللَّهِ أَكْبَرُ وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ مَا تَصْنَعُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, recite what is sent from the book by the inspiration to yourself. Establish regular prayer. Why establish regular prayer, O Allah? Because prayer restrains you from performing shameful and unjust acts. Inna salata tanha anil fahshai wal munkar. Your salat will stop you from performing shameful and unjust acts. The purpose of salat is to build your character so that you are not performing shameful and unjust acts. That's the purpose of salat. Right? It clearly shows that the act of worship of salat has a purpose. And that purpose is to build your character. Of course, you have to establish it correctly. That is where fiqh comes in. You have to establish it with the correct jurisprudential rules and regulations. But once you have established the salat correctly according to the fiqh rules, what is the guarantee that that salat of yours has been accepted? You have established it, but that doesn't mean it has been accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For that salat to be accepted, you need to raise it to a higher level. You establish the salat according to rules and regulations set out by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You cannot worship Allah the way you want to worship, eh? Because there are some people who say, you know what, I can connect with God. I just have to sit in a dark room and I just think and meditate and I got a connection with God, man. I don't need to recite salah. That is arrogance. Who are you to determine how you worship your Lord? That is what shaitan did. That is what shaitan did. Because when Allah said to him that I want you to do sajda of Adam, shaitan said to Allah, your sajda, as many as you want, I am prepared to do. But Adam's sajda, no. خَلَقْتَهُ مِن نَارٍ وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِن teen. I am made of fire, he is made of clay. I will not bow to him. That arrogance is a property of shaitan, not a property of God. Right? You worship him in the way he asks you to worship him. But once you have worshipped him, you have to understand, has that salat of mine been accepted by Allah? Has it become the mi'raj that the Prophet is saying? As-salatu mi'rajul mu'min. Has my salat become a mi'raj of myself? Has it ascended me to that proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because the Holy Prophet said, As-salatu umududdin. Salat is the pillar of religion. In qubilat qubila ma siwa, wa in ruddat rudda ma siwa. If your salat is accepted, then all your amals will be accepted. And if your salat is rejected, then none of your amals will be accepted.
Nare Talawat.
A person came to one of our imams and he said to our imam, he said, how do I know, O imam, that if my salat that I am reading has been accepted or not? And the Imam said to him that, listen, after reciting your salat, if you see a change in your character, whereby you are refraining from unjust and shameful act, then be confident that your salat has been accepted. Right? Imam Jafar as-Sadiq, salawatullah alayhi, he says, somebody came to him and he said to him that, can you tell me, how do I recognize somebody who is a true believer? How do I recognize somebody who is grounded in his belief, who is a true believer, and that I know that he has proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Imam Jafar as-Sadiq alayhi salam replies to this man and says, look, he says that do not look at how long somebody prolongs his ruku and his sujood. Do not look at his worship. Do not look at how much he prolongs his ruku and his sujood. And he says, the sixth Imam says, do not be deceived by this. I tell you one thing, I usually say this, I come from Africa, born in Africa, but I think it applies to the people from India and Pakistan as well. In the old days, before we wanted to get married, right? Your parents would, you would be the ones who would find your spouse for you. But even in Africa at that time, if you liked somebody, and that person was within your community, you would say to your parents that, I want to get married to this person. And so what would happen is that, the parents, your parents, if you're a man, would approach the parents of the woman, right? The bride-to-be. And the first question that the parents of the girl would say, Namaz padhta hai? Roze rakhta hai? Does he pray? Does he fast? Does he come to the mosque? Is he a good person? These are the questions that would be asked. Now the questions are different. Now it is he driving a BMW? Does he have a house? Does he have a good, these are different questions. Nobody nowadays, it would first be, namaz padhta hai? Is he pray? Does he fast? All of those things. So now you like this girl, and you want to impress the father-in-law to be. So we would go to the mosque. And we know that he is going to come. The father of the bride that you want to marry, he's going to come, so we wait. And until he comes, you are waiting, you're in the mosque, alhamdulillah, wear a nice white dress, everything, topi, wopi, everything is there, right? As soon as he comes, you stand up in salah. And you say, Allahu Akbar, loudly, so that he can hear, right? So that, he can hear. And after Surah Al-Hamd, you recite Surah Baqarah. So he thinks you are a very pious person, right? That is what we used to do. Yes? To impress that person. Because you want to marry his daughter. So you want to impress that person. This is what the Imam is saying. Do not look at how long that person prolongs his ruku and his sujood. Do not be deceived by this. Why? Because the Imam said this just may be a habit which that person has developed over a long time. He says that if you truly want to know who is a true believer, then test them with two things. Test them to see how honest they are and how trustworthy they are. And if you see honesty and trustworthiness, then you should know that that person is a true believer, because he has been able to change his character. Some people ask me, why are we not able to focus in our salat? You know that, right? If you forget something, Start reciting Salat, inshallah you will remember it. Right? Because every time we recite Salat, we have in our minds, okay, which is the deal that I have to make? What's the thing that I have to do? Your mind goes everywhere in Salat, does it not? And somebody then asked the fourth Imam, Imam Sajjad, salawatullahi wa salamu Zainul Abidin, Zainul Abidin, Sayyidul Sajidin. Right? So I asked him, tell us what can we do, in order to focus in our salat. Imam says to this man, he says the problem is not in your salat. He says the problem is not in the focus of your salat either. So then this man says, then what is the problem? He says the problem lies in your external life. And he says that, it lies in how you live your life. Because he says that salat has an external reality and it also has an internal aspect, an internal reality. He says that your life outside of your salat, including your desires, your thoughts, your inclinations, and your actions, become ingrained in your nafs. It becomes ingrained in your essence. Whatever your actions are, whatever your thoughts are, whatever your desires are, whatever your inclinations are ingrained in your nafs, in your essence. And he says when you start to recite the salat, these things are externalized and manifested in your salat. That is why you lose focus. He says if you want to keep focus in your life, then every thought and every action that you have, it should have a divine color in it. Think about what you're doing, and every action you carry out, do it for the sake and only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then you will see that there will be focus in your salah. The purpose of this act of worship is to build your character. It's to build your character. Inna salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. Right? And you see, once the Holy Prophet, he, in Medina, what happened was, it was time for Salat. I think Zohr Salat, maybe Maghrib, I don't know. But it was time for one of the Salat. And all the companions were gathered in Mashib al-Nabawi. And they were waiting for the Prophet. And the Prophet was late. So they started to talk to each other. He's late. He's late. He says Salat, everybody has to recite, at awal waqt, but he's late today. So half an hour later the Prophet came. It was about half an hour late. And of course the Prophet came to the mosque and he led Salat. And the people recited Salat behind the Prophet. After the Salat finished, most people went home, but there was somebody like me. It was still bothering him. So he came to the Prophet and he said to the Prophet, I'm not asking, but I'm only asking. I'm not saying, but I just wondered, I just want you to know, you were late, for Salah. So the Prophet looked at this man and he smiled. He said, you're absolutely right. I was late for Salah. But he said, let me tell you why I was late. He said, as I was walking in the alleyways of Medina to come to the Masjid al-Nabawi, in those days the alleys of Medina were very narrow. They were very narrow. He said there was a frail old man who was walking in front of me. And he was walking with a stick in front of me, and he was very old and he was very frail. and he was walking very, very slowly. My moral and ethical character did not allow me to tell that old man to move aside so I could pass him. So I was just following behind him until we got to a place where I would easily be able to pass him. That is why I am late. You know, and once the Holy Prophet was reciting Salat in Masjid al-Nabawi. And it was one of the 4 rakat Salats. So after the first rakat, he recited. The second rakat, he recited. And the third and the fourth rakat, he recited very fast. Very fast. And he finished the Salat very quickly. So people, what happened to the Prophet today? You know, like first 1 rakat, 2 rakat was very nice, speed, slow, everything was good. And then all of a sudden fast. And he said, it's the Prophet, let it be. There must be a reason. But there was somebody like me there who came to the Prophet and said, I'm not asking, but I'm just saying. Like I really noticed that the third and the fourth rakat today, you recited very fast. And the Holy Prophet looked at him and he said, indeed I did. He said that as I was reciting my salat in the second rakat, I heard the voice of an infant baby crying. And I realized that this baby is only a few days old because of the way that this baby was crying. And then I realized at that time that surely the mother of that particular baby must be very anxious that her newborn baby is crying. So I sped up my salat so that she could attend to her baby. The salat needs to transform your character.
Bibi Khuda Khatmal Anbiya Balantar Salawat.
What is the second most important act of worship? After salat, the second most important act of worship is what? Fasting, right? Saum, right? Fasting. What does Quran say about fasting? Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyam kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that I have prescribed fasting for you, just as I prescribed fasting for those before you. Why? So that you may develop taqwa. There is a purpose for fasting. And the purpose for fasting is taqwa. And the taqwa that Allah is talking about here, Ayatollah Mutahari says, taqwa is not worship. Taqwa is not salat. Taqwa is building your character. Taqwa is manifesting Allah's names and attributes within yourself. That is what taqwa is. You know, the Holy Prophet, once again, he was the holy month of Ramadan. He was walking the streets of Medina. And as he was walking the streets of Medina, he heard a lady who was abusing her husband. Her slave. There was a lady who was abusing her slave in the middle of the day in Shahru Ramadan. Gali dena, right? She was actually profanities. She was saying profanity to her slave. The Prophet stopped and he said to one of his companions, get me a glass of water. So the companion got him a glass of water. And he took that glass of water, he went to that woman and he said, why don't you drink this? And the woman looked at the Prophet and said, Ya Rasulullah, how can you tell me to drink this? It is the holy month of Ramadan and I am fasting. And the Holy Prophet said, you are not fasting. All you have done is you have refrained from eating and drinking. You are just experiencing hunger and thirst. You are not fasting. For if you had been fasting, you would have changed your character in such a way that you would not be abusing this man the way you are abusing him. Drink the water because the fast that you are doing is of no use. What is the third most important act of worship? Hajj, right? So Hajj, it's easy, guys, come on. It's Furuddin, right? It's Hajj, right? There is a famous hadith from the fourth Imam, right? Imam Sajjad, salawatullahi wa sallam. Once he was in Hajj, and he was with a companion in Hajj, right? And in some narrations, they say that this companion was Abu Basir. In some narrations, it's somebody else, but he was one of his companions. And they were in Masjid al-Haram, they were in Makkah, in the Kaaba, right? And Abu Basir, he was listening to the Hujjaj, calling out the echoes of Talbiyah. Labbaik, Allahumma labbaik. Labbaik, la sharika laka labbaik. So he was hearing this. And he turned to the fourth Imam and he said, Yabna Rasulillah. He said, it seems that this year, mashallah, there are a lot of people who have come to perform Hajj. So there were a lot of people who have come to perform Hajj. And the fourth Imam said to Abu Basir, Abu Basir, what is it that makes you say this? And Abu Basir says to the Imam, he says, Yabna Rasulullah, do you not hear the echoes of Talbiyah? So many people saying, Labbaik, Allahumma labbaik. It seems that it's packed. So many people saying that. At that point, the fourth Imam says to Abu Basir, oh, Abu Basir, come close to me. And Abu Basir came close to the Imam. And Imam alayhi salam took his two fingers. And he says, oh Abu Basir, I want you to look between these two fingers. And Abu Basir looked between the two fingers of the Imam. When he looked between the two fingers of the Imam, he saw that there are people around the Kaaba who were doing their tawaf. He saw that there were only 4 or 5 human beings. The rest of them were all animals. Some of them were beasts. Some of them were pigs. Some of them were wolves. And as he saw that, he became agitated. The fourth Imam then put his fingers down. He says, do you not see, Abu Basir? There is only a handful of people who are doing tawaf. The rest of them have not transformed their character. Their Hajj is not a real Hajj. They are still animals in their essence. They have not transformed to even become human beings. They're animals. There is a reason, my friend, that the acts of worship have to transform your character. You see this in Karbala. Karbala was, the people in the army of Yazid, they were not kafir. They were Muslims. The people in the army of Yazid, they were like the Khawarij. They had marks of sujood on their forehead. Marks of sujood. They used to fast in the holy month of Ramadan. They were the Qari of Quran. They knew the Quran by heart, the people in the army of Umar ibn Sa'd. They knew the Quran by heart. They had big marks of sujood on their forehead. Qari of Quran. They used to fast, yet their acts of worship had not had any effect on their character to the extent that they were ready to kill the grandson of the Prophet. We have to evaluate ourselves. Have these acts of worship that we carried out build our character or not? Sometimes, we go for ziyarah. We go to ziyarah of Abu Abdullah and Hussein. And I think sometimes you will see that even whilst you are in Karbala and doing ziyarah, the true animalistic character of an individual exposes itself. Sometimes we go for ziyarah and we come back from ziyarah and we are worse in our character than when we went. We still cheat people, right? We still oppress people. We still lie. We still do hasad. We still have takabbur. We have all those things. Oh, but I did ziyarah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. What ziyarah did we do? How did that ziyarah change your character? How does that beat of matam that you do, every beat of matam when you bring your hand up and put it on your chest, has to have a transformational effect on you. Otherwise it's a ritual. And the ritual of Imam Hussein is such that you will still get rewarded for it. That's the beauty of this Imam. But the purpose of adha is that it changes your character. It has to be different. We have to have some change in our character.
Nare Salawat.
Today, we look at and commemorate the wafat of Zainabia, the 4-year-old daughter of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. And I have to tell you that in many riwayat, you will see that she is called Ruqayya, the daughter of Hussein, who is buried in Sham, is called Ruqayya. But we also know her as Sakina. And there are some riwayat that tell you that Imam Hussein alayhi salam used to call her Sakina because she gave him tranquility in his heart. Hamid bin Muslim, who was one of the reporters, right? Hamid bin Muslim actually was a Christian. He was a Christian. He was a reporter from Yazid, who was sent to Karbala so that he could report. He was a journalist, so that he could report every event that was going on. When Hamid bin Muslim was brought to the courtyard of Mukhtar, Mukhtar summoned Hamid bin Muslim. He said to Hamid bin Muslim, he said, you were the journalist and you were recording everything over there. He says, tell me, was there anything that you saw whilst you were recording that moved you and you started to cry? And Hamid bin Muslim says that there was one instance where I could not hold back my tears, O Mukhtar. And Mukhtar says to him, tell me, what was that instance? And Hamid bin Muslim says that it was the instance when the 4-year-old daughter of Hussein, whose name was Sakina, her kurta, her garment had caught fire. And she was running in the Maqtal. And he said that I followed her so that I may be able to put out that fire. And he said, as I got there, I took her and I put out the fire. As I put out the fire, he said, Shimr at that time came. And he said, Shimr at that time came. And he got hold of this 4-year-old daughter of Hussein. He got hold of Sakina with her hair. And he lifted Sakina and he threw her onto the ground. And he said after throwing her onto the ground, he went to her and he ripped her earrings from her ears. And he slapped Sakina so hard on the face that Sakina fell onto the grounds of Karbala. And he says, oh Mukhtar, at that time I saw the mother of Sakina Rabab looking at that. And then when she was looking at that, she was weeping and wailing profusely. That is what made me cry, Mukhtar. It is said that there were 3 instances. There are 3 imams that were overcome with grief to such an extent that they cried loudly. 3 imams who were overcome with grief that they cried really loudly and they cried profusely. The first was Imam Amirul Mu'mineen, Imam Ali alayhi salam. And this was at the time when Amirul Mu'mineen was giving ghusl to Fatima al-Zahra. And the companions say that we heard Amirul Mu'mineen while she was giving ghusl to Fatima al-Zahra, he broke out. He was overwhelmed and he cried loudly and he cried profusely. Later on, when we asked Amirul Mu'mineen, you are Amirul Mu'mineen, you are the one who was able to lift the door of Khaybar. What is it that made you cry so loudly and profusely? At that time, Amirul Mu'mineen said, as I was giving ghusl to Fatima al-Zahra, I was able to witness that broken rib in the chest of Fatima al-Zahra that she had kept a secret from me. Only I can understand how much pain she would have gone through from that broken rib, which was as a result of that door that killed Hazrat al-Muhsin. The second Imam who cried profusely and loudly was Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam. Imam Muhammad al-Baqir says that when he was giving ghusl to the fourth Imam, when he was giving ghusl to his father after so many years after the events of Karbala, the fifth Imam says that as I was giving ghusl to him, I still saw the wounds on his back from the whipping of shimmer. And he says that the wounds still appeared to be raw, that they had still not healed. And that's why I cried loudly. The third Imam that cried loudly was Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam. And he cried loudly in the Zindan of Sham. In the Zindan of Sham, when Janab Sakina had been martyred, when Janab Sakina's Shahadat came, at that time the ladies of Sham came to Imam al-Sajjad. The ladies of Sham, they refused to do ghusl of Janab Sakina. When Imam asked them, why do you not want to give my sister ghusl? The ladies of Sham says to Imam Sajjad, they say that we think that your sister has some sort of a disease, because when we saw her body is discolored, her body is blue and her body is black. We think that she is suffering from some disease. At that time, Imam broke out and he started to wail and cry profusely, and he says, oh lady of Sham, oh the ladies of Sham, this is not a disease, these are the bruises of this oppression of shimmer, these are the bruises where my sister continuously used to fall from the camel. एक 4 साल की बच्ची जिसके बारे में हुसैन कहते हैं कि जिस घर में सकीना न हो वो घर रहने के काबिल नहीं, जिस घर में सकीना न हो। इतनी मोहब्बत कि इमाम हुसैन की शहादत के बाद सकीना बहुत कम सोई है, सकीना बहुत कम सोई है। और जब सकीना को पूछा जाता था कि क्यों नहीं सो रही हो, तो जवाब में सकीना ये जवाब देती थी कि क्या तुम नहीं जानते कि मेरी आदत है कि मेरे बाबा के सीने पे मुझे नींद आती है। अब जब मेरे बाबा ही नहीं रहे तो मैं किसके सीने पे सोऊं? अब सकीना को नींद नहीं आ रही। सकीना के सब्र को आप देखिए, सकीना हुसैन की बेटी है, सकीना हुसैन की बेटी है और सब्र करने वाली है। चचा कुर्बान हो गए, सकीना ने सब्र किया। अली असगर शहीद हो गया, सकीना ने सब्र किया। बाबा हुसैन जब मैदान की तरफ जा रहे थे तो एक मर्तबा सकीना ने जुलजना के पास, जुलजना के पैरों पे सकीना लिपट गई और सकीना जुलजना से कहती है, जुलजना मेरे पापा को न ले जाओ, मैंने देखा है कि आज सुबह से जो भी उस तरफ गया है वापस लौट के नहीं आया है। मेरे चचा पानी लेने के लिए गए थे और मेरे चचा भी वापस लौट के नहीं आए हैं। अज़ादारों, जब इमाम हुसैन ने ये देखा, एक मर्तबा घोड़े से जमीन पे आए, कहते हैं सकीना क्या बात है। मुअर्रिख लिखते हैं कि इमाम हुसैन ने सकीना के कानों में कुछ कहा। उसके बाद जब सकीना کے کانوں میں کچھ کہا ہے۔ اب سکینہ کہتی ہے کہ میرے بابا اگر اللہ کی خوشنودی کے لیے آپ کو میدان کی طرف جانا پڑے تو سکینہ صبر کرنے کے لیے تیار ہے۔ عزادارو شمر کے تماچے کھائے، سکینہ نے صبر کیا، کان سے گوشوارے چھینے گئے، سکینہ نے صبر کیا۔ لیکن ایک وقت آتا ہے زندان شام میں، سکینہ اپنی پھوپھی اماں سے پوچھتی ہے، جب دیکھتی ہے کہ پرندے جب صبح ہوتی ہے تو پرندے اپنے گھروں کو چھوڑ کے باہر جاتی ہے، شام ہوتی ہے تو پرندے لوٹ کے واپس آ جاتے ہیں۔ ایک مرتبہ سکینہ نے جناب زینب سے کہا، پھوپھی اماں ہم مدینے کب واپس جائیں گے؟ ہمارا کب وہ وقت آئے گا کہ ہم مدینے واپس جائیں؟ عزادارو ایک شام ہوتی ہے، سکینہ کو نیند آ گئی، تھوڑی دیر کے لیے نیند آ گئی۔ زندان شام میں تھوڑی دیر کے لیے سکینہ کی آنکھ لگ جاتی ہے۔ اب سکینہ اپنے بابا کو نیند میں دیکھتی ہے، اپنے بابا کو نیند میں دیکھتی ہے۔ ایک مرتبہ حسین نے سکینہ سے کہا، سکینہ اب حسین سے تیری جدائی برداشت نہیں ہوتی، سکینہ اب جلدی میرے پاس آ جاؤ۔ عزادارو بس سکینہ نے یہ خواب دیکھا، ایک مرتبہ خواب سے اٹھی، چلا کے بیویوں سے کہتی ہے، بیویاں میں نے اپنے بابا کو سپنے میں دیکھا ہے، اور زار زار رونے لگی۔ بچی کا یہ حال دیکھ بیویاں اکٹھے ہو گئی، سب زور زور سے رونے لگے۔ ایک مرتبہ بیویوں کے رونے کے شور کی آواز یزید کے کانوں میں پہنچی۔ یزید اپنے نیند سے اٹھا اور غصے میں کہتا ہے کہ یہ کس کی آواز ہے؟ یہ کون رو رہا ہے؟ کس نے مجھے نیند سے جگایا ہے؟ جا کے تلاش کرو۔ جب تلاش کیا، ایک شخص آ کے یزید کو کہتا ہے کہ یزید حسین کے 4 سال کی بیٹی نے اپنے بابا کو نیند میں دیکھا ہے، اور بیویاں اس لیے رو رہی ہے۔ غصے میں آ کے یزید کہتا ہے کہ دیکھو سر حسین کو قید خانے میں لے جاؤ اور اس بچی کو دو، تاکہ اس کو پتہ چلے کہ میں نے اس کے بابا کا قتل کیا ہے، میں نے اس کے بابا کو مار ڈالا ہے۔ عزادارو اب سر حسین جب زندان شام میں آتا ہے تو ایک مرتبہ چھوٹی بچی نے سر حسین سے کپڑے کو اٹھایا، اور جب دیکھا کہ یہ اپنے بابا کا سر ہے، زار زار رونے لگی۔ ایک مرتبہ گھبرا کے کہتی ہے، ہائے میرا بابا۔ سر کو اپنی آغوش میں لیا، سر کو بوسہ دیا، بوسہ دینے کے بعد زار زار رونے لگی۔ سکینہ سر حسین سے لپٹ کر رو رہی تھی۔ تھوڑی دیر کے بعد سکینہ کی آنکھ بند ہو گئی۔ مورخ لکھتے ہیں کہ جب تھوڑی دیر کے بعد سکینہ کے رونے کی آواز بند ہوئی ہے تو بیویوں نے یہ سمجھا کہ بچی سو گئی ہے۔ لیکن عزادارو امام سجاد سکینہ کے قریب آتے ہیں۔ جب سکینہ کو دیکھا، ایک مرتبہ امام نے کہا، انا للہ و انا الیہ راجعون۔ یہ سننا تھا رباب قید خانے میں گر گئی۔ رباب نے آواز دی، ہائے میری سکینہ۔ زینب نے کہا، بھیا تمہاری امانت کی حفاظت نہیں کر سکی۔ عزادارو جب شام سے رہائی ملی ہے، جب یہ قافلہ شام سے نکل رہا تھا تو جناب زینب نے دیکھا کہ سب بیویاں سوار ہو گئی ہے، ایک بیوی کی کمی ہے۔ جناب زینب قید خانے میں آتی ہے۔ جب قید خانے میں آتی ہے، ایک مرتبہ دیکھا کہ رباب لہد سکینہ پہ بیٹھی ہوئی ہے، سکینہ کی کمر پہ بیٹھی ہوئی بھابی ہے. جناب زینب نے رباب سے کہا بھابی اب مدینے جانے کا وقت آ گیا ہے, اب ہمارے ساتھ مدینے جانے کا وقت آ گیا ہے. رباب روکے جناب زینب کو فرماتی ہے ثانیہ زہرا میں مدینہ نہیں آنا چاہتی, میرے لیے مدینہ میں اب رکھا ہی کیا ہے. میرا حسین کربلا میں شہید ہو گیا, میرا ننھا اصغر کو حرملا نے ایسا تیر مارا ہے کہ ایک کان سے دوسرے کان تک میرے اصغر کو ذبح کر دیا. اور کہتی ہے بھابی, اور کہتی ہے ثانیہ زہرا میری سکینہ یہ قید خانے میں کام آ گئی, مجھے مدینہ نہیں جانا ہے. بس یہ سننا تھا. زینب نے اصرار کیا, کہا بھابی آپ کو جانا پڑے گا, آپ کو ہمارے ساتھ مدینہ جانا پڑے گا. اب رباب نے ایک مرتبہ اپنی عبایا سے ایک چھوٹے چھوٹے 2 گوشوارے نکالے, 2 گوشوارے لیے سکینہ کے قبر پہ رکھ دیے. اور کہتی ہے بیٹی ہر وقت پوچھا کرتی تھی کہ مدینہ کب جائیں گے, یہ تمہاری امانت ہے, یزید نے واپس دی ہے, یہ تمہارے لیے رکھ کے جا رہی ہوں, واپس مدینہ جا رہی ہوں. لیکن سکینہ تمہارے بغیر یہ مال لٹ ماتم حسین یا حسین
یا